Before I start this story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and stay till the end. Because this isn't just a story about revenge. It's about respect, silence, and how karma always finds its way back. Sometimes the deepest cuts don't come from enemies. They come from the people you once called family. I still remember the scent of roses that morning. Sweet, hopeful, and warm, like the start of a dream. The small church in Charleston, South Carolina, buzzed with laughter and excitement. My daughter Emily was getting married, the moment every father dreams of. I had woken up early, ironed my old gray suit, and spent an hour perfecting the knot of my tie. My hands trembled slightly, not from nerves but pride. Emily had grown into a beautiful, kind-hearted woman, and after losing her mother, I'd promised to give her the life she deserved. And today, seeing her in that white lace gown, radiant, smiling, glowing, it felt like I'd finally kept that promise. When I first met her fiancé, Jason Turner, I had my doubts. He was young, ambitious, and had that polished Wall Street confidence. The type who thought charm was the same as character. But Emily loved him, so I told myself to look past my instincts. Maybe I was wrong about him. Maybe he was a good man. That morning, everything seemed perfect. Guests filled the pews, music played softly, and Emily walked down the aisle holding my arm. I whispered, "You look just like your mom did on our wedding day." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "I love you, Dad." And in that moment, every lonely night, every sacrifice, every struggle, it was all worth it. The ceremony ended beautifully, and the reception began in a hall decorated with golden lights and white roses. Laughter echoed across the room, glasses clinked, and people danced like tomorrow didn't exist. It felt magical, until the moment it didn't. When the DJ asked me to give the father of the bride speech, my heart pounded. I wasn't great with words, but I wanted to speak from the heart. I took the microphone, smiled at Emily, and began, "Today I watched my little girl become a wife. And though it feels like yesterday I was teaching her to ride a bike, I'm proud of the strong woman she's become." Guests clapped. Emily wiped a tear. I turned toward Jason. "And to you, Jason, take care of her, son. She's my world." Jason laughed loudly. The kind of laugh that didn't belong at a wedding. Mocking, arrogant. He leaned into the mic and said, "Don't worry, old man. I'll take better care of her than you ever could. I mean, come on. You're just a broke mechanic trying to sound wise." The hall went dead silent. My blood ran cold. My heart sank, but I didn't move. Emily's face turned pale. Her smile disappeared. Jason grinned like he'd just said something clever. For a moment, I could hear the clinking of glasses, the uncomfortable coughs of people unsure whether to laugh or stay silent. And then I did something he didn't expect. I smiled, just a small, calm smile. I handed him the microphone and said softly, "You're right, Jason, maybe I don't look like much. But life has a way of showing who's really worthless." And I walked away. Outside the hall, the night was cool and quiet. The music inside faded behind me. I stood alone, staring at the sky, remembering my late wife. She always told me, "Never argue with fools and they'll drag you to their level." So I didn't argue. I just stayed silent. But that silence, it wasn't weakness. It was the calm before a storm. Because the man who called me worthless at my own daughter's wedding had no idea who I really was. I wasn't just a mechanic. I owned the shop. Actually 3 of them, and across 2 states. And years ago, I made a quiet investment into a rising tech company called Hallstrom Technologies. The CEO, Robert Pierce, was an old college friend of mine. He'd made me a small shareholder and a board advisor, though I rarely showed up in person. And guess where Jason Turner worked? At Hallstrom Technologies. Fate had handed me his file, and he didn't even know it. That night after the reception ended, I drove home and sat in my office. My old leather chair creaked as I opened my laptop. Jason's company profile appeared on the screen, smiling headshot, fake confidence and lies buried under polished words. I typed a message to Robert. "Hey, old friend. Hope you're well. Do me a favor, take a look at your employee, Jason Turner. I think you'll find something interesting." Robert replied almost instantly, "You always know something, old man. I'll dig around." I closed the laptop, leaned back, and let out a slow breath. No anger, no hatred, just calm, cold purpose. 3 days. That's all I needed. I knew men like Jason. They rise fast, talk big, and cheat quietly. They think the world owes them something. But the world doesn't forget arrogance, and it punishes it. I had no intention of ruining his marriage or embarrassing my daughter. I wanted something cleaner. I wanted him to learn. The next morning I got a call. Robert's voice was amused. "You were right. The guy's been faking client reports and stealing commission. I've sent it to HR. We'll take care of it quietly." I smiled faintly. "Just make sure it happens fast." Robert chuckled. 72 hours fast? Exactly. That night I sat in my living room sipping coffee. I looked at Emily's photo on the mantel, her as a little girl, sitting on my shoulders laughing. She deserved better than a man like Jason. And when the time came, the truth would show itself. Not through words, but through consequences. Because respect can't be demanded, it must be earned. And in 72 hours, the man who mocked me in front of everyone would lose the only thing he truly cared about: his career. Karma doesn't need years. Sometimes it just needs 72 hours and when the right person to deliver it. When I got home that night after the wedding, I didn't sleep. I sat on my porch, a cup of black coffee in one hand, watching the stars fade as dawn broke over Charleston's quiet skyline. Inside, everything was still except my mind. Jason Turner thought he'd humiliated me in front of everyone. He thought calling me worthless was funny. But he had no idea who he was dealing with. The next morning, my phone buzzed. It was Robert Pierce, CEO of Hallstrom Technologies, and my old friend. "You weren't exaggerating, were you?" he said. "Your daughter's husband is a snake in a suit." I took a slow sip of coffee. "What did you find?" "More than I expected. He's been using company funds to inflate his client reports. Faked revenue. Even took kickbacks from a competitor last quarter. If the board sees this, he's done." I smiled faintly. "Let's not rush it. I want to see how a man behaves when he feels untouchable." Robert chuckled. "You've always been patient with your punishments. Fine, I'll start an internal review quietly. No one will know it's you." "Good," I said softly. "Let's give him enough rope to hang himself." Meanwhile, social media was filled with wedding photos. Emily looked beautiful. Jason, of course, was all smiles, posing, laughing, showing off like he'd conquered the world. My friends sent me screenshots of his captions. "Married the love of my life. Time to build our empire together. Grateful for this new journey. Success and love, both mine." Success and love? Funny, because soon both would vanish. That evening, I drove to my auto shop. The familiar smell of oil, metal, and gasoline calmed me. My employees waved hello, unaware that their boss, the man who still wore old jeans and fixed engines with his own hands, was quietly planning a takedown of a corporate con artist. I looked at my reflection in the glass office door. Wrinkles, gray hair, tired eyes. Jason had seen that and judged me. But what he didn't know was that real power doesn't wear designer suits. It hides in silence, in experience, and in the ability to act when it truly matters. 24 hours had passed. Robert texted again. He's panicking. Audit team asked for his client files. He's making excuses and says his laptop crashed. I chuckled. That's excuse number one. Keep watching. Meanwhile, Emily called me that night. She sounded happy but tired. "Dad, I wanted to apologize for what Jason said at the wedding," she said softly. It was a stupid joke. I stayed silent for a second. "Emily, if a man humiliates someone who raised you..." "That's not a joke. That's a warning," she sighed. "Maybe you're right. But I'll handle it, okay?" I wanted to tell her everything. About the investigation. About the trap that was slowly closing around him. But I didn't. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about teaching both of them what respect truly means. 48 hours. Jason's perfect image began to crack. Robert sent me another update. He's been caught lying to clients. We found 3 forged documents under his ID. HR is preparing a termination draft. Pending board approval. Want me to forward it to you for signature? I paused, staring at the message. So fast. 3 years of arrogance undone in 48 hours. I typed back. Not yet. Let's make sure Emily doesn't get caught in the mess. Then finish it. Robert replied with a thumbs up. That night I couldn't help but think about my wife again. How she used to say, "Don't fight back in anger. Let time do the fighting." And that's exactly what I was doing. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't posting. I was just watching. And the man who mocked me was slowly destroying himself, one lie at a time. By the next morning, on hour 60, and Jason's panic began to show. Robert called me laughing. He showed up at the office early. Tried to delete files, send fake reports. But IT already backed everything up. We've got it all. Good, I said quietly. Don't fire him yet. Let him sweat. Robert laughed harder. You're a dangerous man, you know that? I smiled, only when provoked. That same day, Emily called again. Her tone was different this time, shaky, uncertain. Dad, she whispered. Something's wrong with Jason. He's been on his phone all day, stressed, snapping at me. He won't tell me what's happening. I kept my voice calm. He's probably realizing some choices have consequences, sweetheart. She sighed. Maybe I just wish he'd talk to me. Give him time, I said softly. You'll see the truth soon enough. Hour 70, Robert sent me the final email. Termination approved. Fraud confirmed. He's out. P.S. Thought you might want to see who signed it. Attached was a PDF of the termination order. At the bottom, next to the CEO's signature, was mine. Investor and board advisor Daniel Hayes. That's my name. The same worthless mechanic he mocked in front of 100 guests. Hour 72. Jason received his termination email during breakfast. Emily told me later, and he turned pale, threw his phone, and locked himself in the room. When she asked what happened, he screamed, "It's over! Everything's gone!" She cried, confused, hurt. But when she showed me the letter later that day, I only said, "Sometimes, Emily, people write their own endings." She looked at me with wide eyes. Did you have something to do with this? I smiled softly. No, sweetheart. Life just has a way of balancing things. That night, as I stood on my porch again, watching the moon, I felt no guilt, only peace. Revenge wasn't always about destroying someone. Sometimes it was about reminding them who they disrespected. He called me worthless. But in the end, it took me just 72 hours to remind him that respect and karma always come back. He thought losing his job was bad, but that was just the beginning of his downfall. When I woke up that morning, the air felt different, heavy, like a storm that had already passed but left silence in its place. It had been 72 hours since Jason's humiliation of me at the wedding, and karma had done its job. He was officially terminated, disgraced, and about to face the consequences of his arrogance. But the funny thing about revenge is this: once it's done, it doesn't end there. It echoes. And those echoes were about to shake his entire world. That morning, Emily showed up at my house. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying. She stood at the door holding a folder. "Dad, I need to talk to you," she said softly. I invited her in. She sat on the couch, silent for a moment, before finally whispering, "Jason lost his job. They said something about fraud and forged documents. He swears he's innocent." I stayed quiet, just listening. She looked at me, her voice trembling. "He thinks someone set him up." I leaned back in my chair. "Emily, did he ever tell you what he really does at work?" She shook her head. "No. He always said he handled big clients, but he never talked much about it." I sighed. Sometimes people who brag about success are hiding the cracks beneath it. She studied me for a long moment, then said something that cut deep. "Dad, I need to ask you something. Did you have anything to do with this?" Her voice wasn't angry and just scared. I looked her straight in the eye. "Sweetheart, I don't ruin people. I just let truth reveal itself." Tears filled her eyes again. "He's a mess. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. He keeps yelling that he's been sabotaged." "Maybe," I said softly. "He sabotaged himself." She stood up, pacing. "He made a mistake at the wedding, Dad, but he's not evil. Please, son, if you know anything, tell me." I didn't answer. Some truths hurt more than lies. She left soon after, angry, confused, and broken between love and loyalty. Later that night, my phone buzzed. It was Robert Pierce again. "Daniel, thought you'd want to know. Jason's been blacklisted across multiple firms. His fraud report was shared among our partner companies. He won't get another job in this field again." I paused, taking a deep breath. "Thank you, Robert. That's enough, no more." "You sure?" he asked. "Because if we go public, we can press charges." I shook my head, though he couldn't see me. Let karma handle the rest. But karma didn't stop there. The next day, Emily called again, this time sobbing. "Dad, he's gone." My heart stopped. "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" "He left a note," she said through tears. "He packed his things and disappeared. His phone's off. He said he needed to fix what he broke." For a second, I felt an unexpected pang of guilt. I hadn't wanted to destroy him, just to teach him respect. I drove to Emily's house that evening. She was sitting on the floor surrounded by wedding photos. Her eyes were swollen, her hands shaking. "Dad," she said, "he wasn't always like this. He used to make me feel special. But after the wedding, it's like he became someone else." I sat beside her quietly. Sometimes the mask slips, Emily, and when it does, you finally see who they really are. Over the next few days, rumors spread. People who had once admired Jason's success started whispering. His friends stopped picking up his calls. His car was repossessed. His reputation was gone. And somewhere in that chaos, Emily finally saw what I'd seen from the start. His arrogance wasn't confidence. It was insecurity disguised as charm. She called me one night, voice calm but sad. "Dad, I filed for an annulment today." I closed my eyes, exhaling deeply. "Are you sure?" "Yes," she said. "He made me believe I was lucky to have him. But now I realize he was lucky to have someone who believed in him at all." That night I couldn't sleep. Revenge had done its job, but I felt no triumph. Only silence. Because when you truly love someone, your daughter, your family, revenge never feels like victory. It feels like justice that came too late. Weeks passed. Life returned to a quiet rhythm. Emily started working again, volunteering at a local shelter. Slowly she began to heal. Then one day I got a letter. No name, no return address. Just a folded page in neat handwriting. "Mr. Hayes, I owe you an apology. I was wrong about you, about life, about respect. I thought power was about money, titles, and showing off. But now I know, real power is being silent when you could destroy someone, and you still choose grace. I've started over. I'm working construction now, saving bit by bit. Maybe one day I'll be a man worthy of the woman I hurt. Tell Emily I'm sorry. Jason." I stared at that letter for a long time. My hands trembled as I folded it again. There it was, not revenge, not ruin, but realization. He had finally understood what I'd been trying to teach him that night at the wedding. Respect is not earned through money or status. It's earned through humility. That evening, I drove to the church where Emily got married. It was empty, quiet, the same smell of roses still faint in the air. I looked at the altar, remembered that moment when he'd called me worthless and smiled. Because now, after everything, I realized something profound. Sometimes revenge isn't about making someone lose. It's about helping them see, and Jason had finally seen. As I walked out of the church, the sun dipped below the horizon. The world felt lighter. Emily was free, Jason was humbled, and I finally had peace. Karma didn't just balance the scales. It restored them, and that, my friend, was worth every second of those 72 hours. He disappeared without a trace. But 6 months later he came back, not to fight but to beg for forgiveness. 6 months had passed since the wedding disaster. Life had finally found its quiet rhythm again, or so I thought. Emily was smiling again. She'd moved back home for a while, started teaching music at a local school, and slowly rediscovered herself. Every evening, we'd sit on the porch, sip coffee, and talk about everything except Jason. Until one evening he came back. It was a Friday. Rain was falling softly, tapping against the wooden deck. I heard a car stop outside him, an old, beaten-up truck. The doorbell rang. When I opened it, my heart skipped a beat. It was Jason. He looked nothing like the man who had humiliated me at the wedding. His suit was gone, replaced by torn jeans and a flannel shirt. His once slick hair was messy, and his eyes carried exhaustion, regret, and shame. "Mr. Hayes," he said softly, "I know I shouldn't be here, but I needed to see Emily just once." For a few seconds, I didn't speak. The silence between us was thick, the kind that carried months of unspoken words. Finally, I said, "She's not home. But I think you owe me a conversation first." He nodded slowly. "I was hoping you'd say that." We sat on the porch, the same place I'd sat after losing my job years ago, wondering how I'd rebuild my life. He glanced at the mug in my hand. "Coffee still your favorite?" I raised an eyebrow. "Still better than pretending to be rich." He let out a small, tired laugh. "Fair point." Then, after a pause, he spoke the words I never thought I'd hear. "I ruined everything because I was scared. I wanted to impress Emily, impress her friends, her world. But deep down, I was terrified she'd see I wasn't good enough." I didn't say anything. I wanted him to keep talking, not for me, but for his own soul. He continued, "When I called you worthless, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about myself. I just didn't realize it." The rain got heavier. His voice cracked. I've lost everything. The job, the house, the car. But the thing that hurts the most is losing her respect and yours. I took a long breath. Jason, do you understand what real respect is? He looked up confused. It's not about what you own. It's about how you treat the people who have nothing to give you in return. He nodded slowly. I know that now. Every day I wake up at 4 a.m. for construction work. I get paid hourly, covered in dust and sweat. And I think about that night, wishing I could take those words back. He looked down, tears mixing with raindrops. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to apologize, face to face. Just then the front door opened. Emily stepped out, her umbrella in hand, frozen when she saw him. Her breath caught in her throat. Jason? He stood up instantly. Emily, I just needed to tell you I'm sorry. I was stupid, selfish, and blind. You didn't deserve what I did to you, or to your father. She didn't speak. Just stared at him, seeing not the man she married, but the broken one standing before her now. After a long silence, she said softly, Do you remember what you said at the wedding? He nodded, eyes red. Every word, and I hate myself for it. She took a deep breath. You called my father worthless, but he's the one who saved you from yourself. Jason's head dropped. I know. He gave me what no one else ever did, a lesson that finally woke me up. Then something unexpected happened. Emily walked over, and instead of slapping him or yelling, she handed him the umbrella. Go home, Jason, she said quietly. Stay dry. You've suffered enough in the rain. He looked at her, tears streaming down. Does that mean you forgive me? She shook her head softly. Not yet. Forgiveness isn't something you ask for. It's something you earn, and that takes time. As Jason walked away, I watched from the porch. The rain blurred his figure as he disappeared down the street, humbled, but somehow free. Emily sat beside me, quiet for a long time. Finally, she whispered, Do you think people really change, Dad? I looked at her. I think pain changes people more than love ever could. She nodded, resting her head on my shoulder. He looked different. He's learning, I said softly. And sometimes learning the hard way is the only way. Over the next few weeks, Jason didn't contact us again. But occasionally, Emily would receive anonymous donations at her music school, boxes of instruments for the kids, new speakers, or envelopes with small notes. For the ones who deserve second chances. I knew who it was, but I never said a word. Because sometimes redemption doesn't come in loud apologies or public acts. It comes quietly, one small good deed at a time. Months later, the school organized a charity event. Emily invited me to attend. As I sat in the audience, I saw a familiar figure standing in the back, and Jason. He didn't approach, didn't make a scene. He just stood there, smiling faintly as Emily performed on stage. After the performance ended, he quietly slipped out before anyone could see him. But that single act, watching her from afar, proud and silent, told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't the arrogant groom anymore. He was a man who had finally learned the meaning of humility. That night, as Emily and I drove home, I told her something that made her smile. Sometimes God doesn't give us revenge, I said. He gives us realization, and that's far more powerful. She nodded, eyes glistening. I think he finally found his. And for the first time since the wedding, we both felt peace. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes the road to redemption starts where pride once ended. He lost everything, but fate wasn't done with him yet. The man I destroyed was about to walk back into my life, at this time to save mine. A year had passed since the wedding. The chaos had faded into memory. Emily was doing great. Her music school was growing. Her students adored her. And for the first time in years, I saw my daughter truly happy. As for Jason, I hadn't heard a word since that rainy night. Until one morning, destiny decided to test both of us again. It started with a construction accident. I was driving home when I saw smoke rising from the downtown site. The same one I passed every day. Out of instinct, I stopped to help. The building's scaffolding had collapsed, trapping a few workers inside. I rushed in, ignoring the shouting guards. Inside, through the dust and chaos, I saw someone dragging a trapped man out, coughing, bleeding but refusing to give up. And when he turned toward me, my heart froze. It was Jason. He saw me too, his eyes wide in disbelief. Mr. Hayes? What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing. I shouted over the noise. He grabbed another piece of metal, helping a coworker crawl free. His arms were bleeding, but he didn't stop. Minutes later, the fire trucks arrived. Jason had saved 3 men before collapsing from exhaustion. At the hospital later that night, I sat beside his bed. His arm was bandaged, his face bruised, but there was something peaceful about him. When he opened his eyes, he smiled faintly. "Guess this makes us even." I chuckled softly. "Maybe you just bought yourself a second chance." He laughed weakly. "I wasn't trying to, I just couldn't stand by while someone else suffered. Feels strange, doesn't it? Doing the right thing." I looked at him seriously. That's what makes it right. Over the next few weeks, I visited him often. We talked, not as enemies, but as 2 men who had seen life strip away everything that didn't matter. He told me how he'd been rebuilding slowly, living in a small rented room, working construction, saving every penny. But more than money, he'd been rebuilding his soul. "I learned something, Mr. Hayes," he said once. "When you lose everything, you finally realize what you had. Emily was my heart. You were my mirror. And I broke both." I didn't reply, but deep down I felt something change. Maybe this man truly had learned. A few months later, my business in a small supply company. I'd started after retirement and got a large city contract. I needed someone reliable to manage logistics. I thought long and hard before picking up the phone. "Jason," I said, "I need a manager. Someone who knows hard work and humility." "Interested?" He was silent for a moment. Then his voice broke slightly. "You'd trust me? After everything?" I smiled. Trust has to start somewhere. And so Jason came to work for me. He was quiet, respectful, and determined, often the first to arrive and the last to leave. At first, my employees were skeptical, but within weeks they admired him. He never mentioned his past. He never boasted. He just worked and smiled. One evening after closing, he approached me. "Mr. Hayes, I want to repay you. Every cent you might have lost because of me." I laughed softly. "You already have. You're helping me build something that matters." He looked at me with gratitude I hadn't seen in a long time. "Then let me keep building." One Saturday afternoon, Emily came to visit my office, unaware that Jason worked there. When she walked in and saw him, she froze. "Jason?" He stood up immediately, nervous. "Emily, I didn't want you to find out like this." She looked between us. "Dad, you hired him?" I nodded. Everyone deserves a second chance. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Even after everything?" I smiled. "Especially after everything." She turned to Jason. "You've changed." He nodded slowly. "I had to. The old me didn't deserve you." As she left that day, she didn't say much, but her eyes told me she was thinking, not about the man he was, but the man he'd become. And for the first time, I saw something in Jason I'd never seen before, in peace. He wasn't trying to prove himself anymore. He was simply living right. That night, as I closed the office, Jason said something quietly that stayed with me. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for destroying my old life. Because if you hadn't, I never would have found this one." I smiled, patting his shoulder. "Then make sure you never forget who you were." He nodded. "I won't."